Get a mic check.
There you go.
Only added to iRacing about 2, maybe 3 years ago, and it's such a welcome addition. And whilst it's quite a unique circuit, it's fantastic to occasionally visit it.
Yeah, good evening, Sam, and to all the viewers tuning in. It's a great circuit. It offers a lot of challenge. While you've got the high-speed sections of the circuit through the Mulsanne and that, you also got a lot of tight technical sections, especially at the back end of the lap, which can really catch some of the drivers out here. So I think, all in all, racing's going to be pretty fierce, and we should be in for a good show.
Yeah, definitely. 1.5 hours long, this race. A few different formats this series. Of course, you have the 2 20-minute races, with the second one being a reverse grid. I think we've also got 40-minute races as well, but 1 hour 30 today, so quite a challenge for these guys, and certainly very appropriate. That's the place which holds the most famous endurance events in the world. Arguably, maybe a little bit debated, but certainly in Europe. And appropriate that is holding one of the enduro events today. The practice session is just coming underway. Of course, the drivers have already completed their qualifying. We're in 2 splits today. We've got a decent amount of drivers in each one. And I'm sure you can already see on the graphics that it's at 6:30 in the morning. So, of course, going to get quite a bit warmer as this race goes on, Daniel. I think they call this in real life happy hour, when the sun comes up. Usually the best times pop up from the drivers, and that track temperature is going to maybe cause a little bit of an issue for some of these guys.
Well, yeah, happy hour is probably the peak time of the circuit, and for anyone who's watched any of the race to 24-hour documentaries with Audi and Toyota, they spoke highly of that last hour of transition from night to morning, and how good it was, and the speed that you can get out of it. So the guys are going to really love that. And looking at how they go with tyres tonight, obviously they're going to have a couple of pit stops they do need to do, and one set of tyres for this one should get them home pretty comfortably, I dare say.
Yeah, I think so. I think Joe's sometimes in the 24 hours do three stints. In real life, I think they can do 4 hours, but in iRacing, usually limited to about 3 stints. Currently 18 degrees track temperature, so yeah, not too much pressure on these tires by any means. And should be 1 or 2 pit stops for these drivers to complete. I don't see any fuel limits, Daniel. Is there a fuel limit in this series? Do you know?
Look, I think there will be, from memory, there is a mandatory amount they will need to put fuel in the cars. Being that we're doing 90 minutes here, you're definitely going to get through a full tank of fuel in one of the stints. So pitting for this and getting the fuel is going to be mandatory. But we kind of touched on it last week as keys to leading up to this one, as something to keep an eye on. But for the drivers that are able to get it alongside with teammates of equal and similar speed, they're probably going to want to take the advantage of maybe trying to pit them together to retain that draft, because that's the most critical thing around Le Mans.
Yeah, it certainly is. That draft effect can be very helpful to some of these drivers. Let's hope it's a good race. We can go through the grid. And it's on pole position is Dominic Ferraris, ahead of Craig Edwards. Nathan Huppatz and Dave Clements line up on the second row of the grid. Behind that is Adam Gardner, Andrew Malcolm, Timothy Phoeben, Stephen Lattimore, Philip Morton, Cody Bird, Leigh Vanderberg, and William Mitchell running up the top 12. Behind that is Richard Hunter, Mia Ott, Jackson Walls, Kenneth Latzer, Jeremy Clark, Justin Wallace, Brett Hender, Martin Crisp, Johannes Koch, Paul Wood, Matt Morris, Cody Trainer, Pat Gallo, Stephen Bartholomew, David Miller, Aaron Specchio, Taylor Oakes, Rob Gray, Grant Madaford, Wayne Taylor, Jesse Butler, Ryan Kolstad starting a little bit further down the order in 34th, and Matt Farrar lining up in 35th place. I'd like to say what the pole position time was. I don't actually know, because of course qualifying's done in another session. I should just give a shout out to one of the sponsors of this series, which is RMS, a race management service. and anyone who's hosting leagues certainly do recommend it, because it enables you to do all kinds of stuff to the order. You can have reverse grids for each of the classes. So when we're hosting, for example, GT3 and GTE, as this series was last season, that comes in a lot of use. I think they may have also used it to line up the grid for this as well. So very useful. And certainly to check them out along with the other sponsors, of course, in this series, which we do certainly appreciate. But 90 minutes of racing about to get underway. I guess not too important, the grid around this place, Daniel, because, well, overtaking is so simple.
Well, yeah, I mean, everyone's going to be looking to, realistically, you still want to be in a good position to go off, because it does lead you away from any issues you may find down in the mid-pack. And we know the run-up through turn 1 and getting through Dunlop and all that can be quite tricky, especially with cold tyres here. So if you're able to avoid that by being up front, that is very helpful. But having said that, I mean, you can pretty much qualify anywhere with the grid, and as long as you can stick with someone to help you out with the draft, you can certainly make your way forward very easily within this race. So for all the drivers, they'll just have a level head against them, and the eyes will be sitting forward as far as possible and trying to keep an eye out for any of those unforeseen errors that could potentially impact them off the stadium.
Yeah, very tight, twisty final couple of chicanes. Hopefully nothing occurs. We want to see as many drivers take part in this entire race. Expect a few crashes out there, though. Not a whole lot of runoff around certain parts of this track. Fantastic speed back at Le Mans. The jets fly above, and Dominic Flores flies away from the grid. He's got a comfortable lead straight away into single file. At least the front runners are through those couple of chicanes. And Dominic Flores leads these GTE cars away for 19 minutes of racing at Le Mans. Herpatz is quite close to Edwards just behind, but he should probably just stay behind. But you can see Flores already with a 1 second lead. Lassimore gets ahead of Fieben, who's had a little bit of a poor start, losing 2 places. He's the big loss in the top 10. And just looking further down the field, no one else gaining more than 1 place. Good driving through those 4 chicanes, but of course it could still get very hairy later on in the lap. Already Flores has a 1.3 second lead out ahead. An incredible start for him, straight away trying to break that draft. And as the drivers start to move onto the Mulsanne, it could not be a much better start for the 904 driver.
No, he did everything he needed to. Got away quite nicely. The gap ever increasing as they work their way down to Mulsanne here. And if he's able to continue that on, he'll set himself up for a good thing. I think the Ford's going to be very quick in the hands of Craig Edwards. We saw it last week out at Phillip Island. Maybe a little further down the order where he wants, but he's got Nathan Happett's right behind him at the moment. So these two are going to be pretty well locked together, I dare say.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe Happett's just not wanting to go for a move at the moment. He doesn't want to compromise their pace, because even if you do make a move into the first chicane, you're going to be under pressure into the next one. It's better just to try to help you two in terms of the pace, and of course saving plenty of fuel as well could be quite significant. Jackson Walls has got ahead of Richard Hunter, who's just dropping down the order. In fact, Hunter maybe just getting a slowdown. There he is, and that is a big pain on the opening lap. Ever so difficult to get rid of that slowdown, and well, that is plenty of places lost. He was running in 13th place. He's outside the top 20 now.
Yeah, it's a tough one to swallow very early on there, but with it still being well under 90 minutes still to go here, they should be able to get back up towards the front of the 20. And keep an eye though, that battle up in second with Edwards and Happett still going on pretty strong as they work their way down to the end of the Mulsanne straight here. It doesn't look like Happett's going to be able to get a move done under brakes. You can see the sun reflecting off the wheels there. It looks absolutely fantastic. But Craig doing a great job up in second position. Hasn't let go a lot of Ferris out front. That gap sitting about 2 seconds now, but the Ford should come into its own later on.
Yeah, it could certainly be the case. Good to see good variants of cars out there. Top 3 in 3 different cars. Not too many Porsches out there. Used to be quite a popular car, but certainly has fallen out of fashion since the Ford has gained a bit of space in the last BAP. Jackson Walls is having an absolutely awesome run. He's up 4 places now from his start. I think it was an incredible launch off the grid for him. There he is, a Porsche, so probably proving my point wrong, because he's showing that that guy is still very competitive, but he's just got past Vanderberg and Mitchell, and isn't too far behind Cody Bird now, so the 138 car really charging along right now.
Yeah, Jackson want to have a good run. He had some issues last time out at Phillip Island there, so looking to recover there. And knowing how good he is in the Porsche in real life, he races the Porsche Cup, he should go a long way forward tonight.
Yeah, certainly the start that he needed, as a pretty successful first lap. Dare I say, I mean, we're not at the end of the first lap yet, so there's still opportunity for crashes. But these guys quite experienced, of course, in these cars, in this type of racing, fighting amongst each other, and they've been very respectful. Just a driver a little bit further back, they're losing a few places. I think that was William Mitchell, just running a little bit wide, maybe picking up a slowdown as well, because can't afford to run too wide coming out of the Porsche curves, as the Porsche just behind trying to take advantage. And yet Mitchell, I think, ran wide, actually lost time by going off the circuit, yet still picked up a slowdown. And that is something to watch out for at this Le Mans circuit. Not too many off-track incidents that you pick up, but there are plenty of slowdowns instead.
Yeah, it was probably a smart move, just dropping out a line there, allowing the guys to go past. There's Ferrari just spinning off in the background. Actually, a couple of cars off to the side of the track there. We'll have to keep an eye on who they are. But yeah, probably the right time to do it just after that first.
Yeah, that was, sorry, it wasn't Mitchell. Mitchell was involved in that previous one, but Ott and Van der Berg have both really fallen down the order, and I wonder if there was a bit of damage as well on their cars. There is Ott. Actually, he's not too bad as Ott. He lost 10 places though there, and Van der Berg was a few places ahead, was he? Or maybe they did come together, not quite sure, but an incident at the first chicane between those two, and it's really hurt their events. Are still running though in a decent place. Stephen Latsmore just moving ahead, and there we go. So it was a collision between the two. Ott running way too deep, scampering across the gravel, and that is a great shame for him. Like I said, Stephen Latsmore just getting ahead of Adam Gardner in the past few seconds. He's up into 4th place.
Yeah, they've still got a strong move here. Jackson Wall on Justin Wallace there, two battling Porsches, trying to get a bit of a toe there off Kenneth Ladder in the race on Oscar. And looks like Wall just getting a bit of a move done there. Really dicey stuff as they work their way down towards that second.
Just enough space given by the two of them, and Wall will head back onto the straight. 4.5 seconds now, the gap between these guys and the guys ahead. Look at that. Massive pack in these early stages.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised to see the gap opened up as much as it has. As I say, only 5 minutes on the clock there, and we've got some pretty big differences between all these drivers at the moment. Obviously, being a little bit of congestion is probably not helping, but surprised to see that up till 10th place, we've at least got over 20 seconds between the leader now, so that's a long way down this field.
Incidents occurring behind Philip Morton, falling down the order. Also, Kenneth Latzer having a few poor corners, I think picking up a slowdown himself. It's difficult to keep track of everything because, yeah, these slowdowns aren't totally obvious to see, but they are ever so influential, especially in these opening couple of laps. So just on lap 2, and already we've seen plenty of action in this 90-minute race. Of course, are expecting a pit stop, but when that will be could pretty much be anywhere between maybe the half-an-hour mark. That would probably be a little bit early, maybe pushing your chances on the fuel to about the hour mark. Expect the drivers to try to go as far as possible. As now Richard Hunter is that falling down the order. No, sorry, Justin Wallace. He's picked up a slowdown seemingly. He's about 5 places himself.
Yeah, he looks like he had a little bit of an issue getting out through an arch there. It's probably easy to get an off track and a time cut through there because you come in quite hot and having to get the car slowed in time to get it through that corner. So it is an easy position to lose there, but should be able to recover that pretty well. With the stops though, similar to what we saw at Coda for the first round of the Enduros, the guys seem to break it up into 30-minute segments, and I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see something similar along those lines to that this time out. We did see some alternate strategies last season with some of the drivers maybe trying to get those stops banged in right next to each other, and it didn't really seem to work out. And I think with the sort of circuit we're at tonight for Le Mans, that's not really going to play out. But the 30-minute stop's probably going to be where the ideal positions will be, I think.
Yeah, it just jogged my memory of actually the Daytona round, which was the second race I ever did in this series. And yeah, you're absolutely right. They did split it into, you've got to do 2 compulsory pit stops in this series. There's Beeben, puts his car down the inside, can't quite win out though. Keeping it on the circuit, they don't want to get dragged onto the grass then because it's so easy to be sucked into the barrier on the outside.
Yeah, it was a very forceful move too by Tim Feeben to come back through on the inside there and retain that lead, but he will give Feeben a nice tow down the first portion of the Molson.
Yeah, so Gardner, Bird, Feeben, Malcolm just a little bit further behind. 2 teammates maybe going side by side potentially. Are they just trying to box in their rival, helping the team there? Feeben keeps the inside line, but by no means is this battle over anytime soon.
No, looking at where they're going, they're actually starting to drop Andrew Malcolm, just off the back of this little group a little bit there, so we'll keep an eye on that. But I think from what we've seen, especially in this series and a couple of other championships throughout the season so far, these BMWs really come on strong with the tyre allocation towards the back end of the stint. So I think while they're sitting a little further down the order now, look for them to come on really, really strong later on.
Mia Ott with a penalty. Not sure if we've already seen that penalty maybe on your screens, but 20-second stop and hold for causing a collision. And this pit lane is quite a long pit lane, so that is a hefty penalty, to say the least, for Meyerot, and that pretty much wrecks his race. Going to be a damage recovery from this point. Paul Wood and Keth Latzer in a very close battle just behind these guys at the moment. The battle for 14th place. Look at this train. So it's Wood leading, and then it's Latzer, Hunter, Wallace, Morton, who's had a couple of issues, and Gallo as well in 19th place. So some very quick drivers here as Latzer goes down the inside. Should be the ideal line for this next corner. He picked up a slowdown earlier on, was in the top 10, I believe, at one point was Kenneth. And Paul's way ahead going into Indianapolis. So that's a positive move for him. And I wouldn't be surprised if maybe Hunter and Wallace and Morton soon get past him, as well as off the circuit goes Wallace. And has he hit the wall?
Yeah, it looked like that Porsche Wallace there in the wall there, I think might have a little bit of damage, but we'll see if he's able to get that turned around and redressed. It is an easy corner to lose it. You run that through that Indianapolis section there, and unfortunately that Porsche just getting a little light in the rear and where she went, but still early days. He should be able to recover that, but we'll just jump to a replay here now and just see what transpired.
Pat Gallo lost it all by himself then, gained a couple of places with the instance ahead, and then proceeded to spin. Oh, it's just the tiniest of nudges on Wallace. He does a really good job at locking the brakes to try to stop the car hitting the wall, and actually didn't lose too much there, did Wallace. He lost about 5 seconds or so in a handful of places. But frustrating day for him so far, and that's the thing with Le Mans, when you've got such a tight bunch of drivers, it's so easy to get involved in collisions, which just holds you up. As we got a Ford missing the pit entry there. Was that Mitchell potentially? But
I think that was Morton going wide there, running off the track there. That was a big one on the run in through to the pit straight there. It's a tricky little chicane that you've got to try and negotiate before you drop in there. So that will impact him a little bit, but he should be able to get back up underway. But up in 6th at the moment, you've got Adam Gardner with his teammate Tim Feeben behind him. These guys actually managed to get past Cody Bird, so they're extending a touch of a gap now. And I'm sure the Mark 1 guys are going to want to work together now and see if they can extend. And just up ahead of them, they've got Nathan Happert's for Fusion Sim Racing, so they'll be looking to try and get back up towards the pointy end of the top 5.
Do we know why Happert's dropped down to 5th place? Because he was running in 3rd in the early stage. I can't remember him being overtaken.
No, I didn't see what unfolded there, but he has dropped quite a way. He's about 4 seconds now off the back of Dave Clement, another one of the Mark 1 Esport cars up there as well. So he's fallen down a little way, so potentially unforced error there, or a little bit of contact, which has been a result of that.
Now side by side between Clemens and Herpats, and Herpats moves ahead. So yeah, boy, it was an unforced dropped him behind his rival, but is starting to make it up again. Clemens just running a little bit wide through that chicane and straight away losing a big amount of time, 9/10 of a second, after being ahead just a few moments ago, and lined up down this straight, one after the other for Herpats to catch and pass. Next up, Stephen Latsmore, who is setting some very impressive times, actually faster than Craig Edwards at the moment. Dominic Ferrara still with an advantage over the rest of the field, it seems. 6.5 seconds ahead of the second place man. But we don't know what's going on with fuel, perhaps maybe running a little bit less fuel in this early stint to, and then putting some more fuel in later on. So certainly do not count out these rivals, and of course the traffic as well at Le Mans could be an influence as well. By the way, also Phil Morton getting a black flag, 20-second stop and hold for him for causing a collision. So these penalties are gradually coming in. We've only had a couple so far, but they are very influential in these drivers' races.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just keeping an eye on where Morton's rejoined back on the track. He's come back out at the moment. He's getting his way down through Tetrarouge and onto the Mulsanne Straight. So when we look at where our race leaders are on the run into the Porsche curves, that's a huge amount of time that he's got now to try and make back up. On top of that, he's still got a couple of pit stops that he's still got to retain as well. So he's going to have a pretty busy night trying to get back up to the tail end of this field if there's no safety car.
Can we get a safety car?
Yeah, race control will pull one if it's deemed necessary and we get a big enough incident. I think that will be in the hands of Matt Farah tonight, currently sitting in the lane. So we'll look to see that come out, possibly even Ryan Kolstad. So we'll keep an eye on who will be driving that car, should and if it be needed.
Awesome. I mean, sometimes us commentators are given admin rights for the session, and we can call a safety car. In World GT, I believe it is literally our responsibility to call a safety car if there is a big wreck, and it is incredibly tempting when a race is getting a little bit dull, just to accidentally press a couple of buttons and cause a bit of excitement. But unfortunately, we don't have that power today. Matt Morris looking back at Jeremy Clark. Morris up 12 places so far. The big gainer, I only see really Tyler Oakes, maybe Wayne Taylor gaining 11 places each, but they're quite a bit further down the order. So Morris really overperforming in this race.
Yeah, it's kind of been a bit of a standard for Morris. He doesn't necessarily always get the best qualifying lap out of the car, but come race conditions, he certainly gets the head down and bum up and goes hell for leather in it. And another result of what we've seen tonight. Currently sitting in that 11th spot, plenty more positions for him to make up. And realistically, he's not too far off the back of Jackson Wall in the Porsche just ahead of him there, only one and a bit seconds up the road. And all going well, and looking at the laps that he's putting in at the moment, actually quicker on pace than Wall ahead of him, so should be able to close that gap down pretty quickly, I dare say.
Yeah, he's looking full of confidence at the moment. Of course, a long way to go in this event. So easy to end your race just with a small mistake and only on lap 5. According to Scott Newton, the drivers can usually go 14 laps in fuel. But so that's the absolute furthest they can go. But I believe they have to pit twice during the race. So I expect them to divide that into about 3 equal stints. If they want to pit now, they are certainly very welcome to. And we have seen a few drivers pit so far for a mixture of penalties and fuel to this point. David Miller gaining a place past Pat Gallo. Gallo just struggling a little bit, had a decent start and was fighting for top 14 places, I believe, but then got caught up in that incident down at Indianapolis, and since then has been struggling quite a bit, and now David Miller gets past him as well.
Yeah, we're also getting word too from race control that Rob Gray in the Flying Giraffe car will be getting a 20-second stop and hold for a collision that he had with Cody Trainer in the 365. So that's going to add a little bit more to Rob's night, having to come back again from that one. But great to see Race Control being able to pop those notifications up. But looking at Dave Miller at the moment, he's got Wayne Taylor, Pat Gallo, and Aaron Specchio not too far behind him in the good mix of cars. Actually, we've got all 4 cars up on screen at the moment. Well, 3, sorry, the Porsche, the BMW, and the Ferrari. The only one missing out of that group of 4 there is the Ford, but these guys pretty well locked together and have been for a fair while now.
Yeah, hopefully this battle will continue to the end of the race, and I think Martin Crisp as well, he's a bit out of position, will hopefully catch up to these guys as a spin for Specchio there. Down at Indianapolis, loses a place to Crisp. And Specchio back on his way now. I think he just got involved in a bit of an instant. There he is. Ooh, it's a bit of damage on that rear wing. Might have to come into the pits. These drivers get 2 fast repairs. So if they do pick up a bit of damage, as Aaron has done here, you can come into the pits, get it all fixed, and not too much of a worry. But that is quite a bit of damage on the front corner. The rear won't be too bad. That rear wing, especially around this circuit, doesn't do too much, but may have done in the steering a little bit. That's like a little bit shaky coming out of that corner, so I expect him to be in on the pits. I assume then, so I mean, just thought, when we see these stop and hold penalties, they can still do their pit stop during the stop and hold, I believe. It's just an additional 20 seconds added to their pit stop time. I believe that's the case anyway, Daniel.
Yeah, I'm just actually looking through the rulebook just for clarification on that, because I did see some comments in the YouTube chat just verifying what procedure is if the guys don't come in. So I'm just running through the manual at the moment. I'll come back on that. But yeah, I think looking at how it is, the guys should potentially be able to take that pit stop. It'll just be added on during that stop.
If they don't serve the penalty, they'll get disqualified by iRacing itself. So the admins can basically give an iRacing penalty, a proper official penalty, and then they can cross the line 3 times, I believe, before getting disqualified. It might even be more than 3 times, to be honest. I think I've tested it before when I've got like a meatball flag for damage. And it took a while for myself to get disqualified, to be honest. But yeah, it should be about 3 times they cross the line, and then they get disqualified on the next lap. So it is very important that you do serve it. Theben very close to Wolves. We've also got that battle just behind Wood at the moment. Here comes Wolves.
Yeah, we're getting almost a double draft there.
Yeah, very advantageous. It's a good run through the second chicane as well. Means they can lap straight back onto the BMW ahead, although tricky to make a move into the Mulsanne corner. He's going to go for it though. Really no defence put up by the BMW, and that is very simply done by Jackson Wolves, who after a brilliant start hasn't made a whole lot of progress since then, but just continuing to knock down these places up into the top 8.
Yeah, that's probably the smart way to go about it. I mean, use the car advantage ahead of you. You could potentially even roll out a little bit, maybe extend the fuel window with it, depending on how you're going. But he's not going overly crazy at the moment and coming in for a good result up ahead of him. As you see the lights just starting to flash a little bit, just let the guys know he's got Andrew Malcolm ahead, who's coming under all sorts of fire at the moment, or putting all sorts of pressure, on the BMW there of Adam Gardner just ahead of him. So plenty of good battles just up ahead here.
So the order's actually changed quite a bit in this field. So on this lap, so he did have Malcolm ahead of Theben, then Gardner, then Bird, then Wolves. But you can see now the order is quite a bit different to that. So plenty of chopping and changing so far. Here we go into the Porsche because this is a bit of an ambitious move. Gardner will try to stick it around the outside, almost contact. I think there was contact. And trying to go around the outside, there's the Porsche. That was very brave. Clearly he doesn't have claustrophobia because there was an impending wall on the outside, gets through, and Adam Gardner falls right to the back of this field. I think just lost 4 places. Great shame for him. Theben loses a place to Bird as well, who gains a couple of positions. And now it's still going on. Morris
Yeah.
involved.
I was just going to say too, it looks like Malcolm's almost self-penalising himself there and dropping back in behind that was a pretty ambitious move up the inside. It's not a place you really want to be on the track on the run through the Porsche curves, because it really does compromise that run on the exit there. And that's sort of the end result. You see a bit of side-to-side contact, but I think race control will probably look on that pretty favourably and should allow this one to continue on.
Yeah, I think so. Of course, great to have live stewards. Always a very important thing in the league to have live stewards. Some of the series that we do on Apex Racing TV are like 20-minute reverse grid races. I mean, it's a little bit more tricky because there's so much going on there. It's kind of impossible to keep track of everything, but certainly in these hour-and-a-half long races, fantastic that we kind of get a proper results through the race rather than post-race penalties and point penalties for the championship as well. Really good to properly see it all go on the circuit. Herpats, by the way, has just got back past Clermont, so Clermont's got back past Herpats a few laps ago, and now they're swapped again. I kind of want to be the second car out of these two, to be honest, because they seem so evenly matched. There's not really any reason to lead. You may as well be behind and saving a bit of fuel. So I don't know if there's some teamwork going on between these two.
Yeah, potentially, and I think it's always easier being the driver behind to get your marks, and you know where you're aiming for, and using that car in front's always a good advantage to push on. Probably similar to a lot of drivers similar to me is I normally struggle a bit when I'm out front trying to get the focus and not stick the eyes in the rearview mirror. It's so much easier in that catbird position to try and block all that out and just focus on what's going on ahead of you.
The F3 screen is my worst thing. Spending too much time watching that quite often, thinking, "Oh no, I've lost a 10th," and suddenly panicking, and usually doesn't help the situation. Here is an onboard. You can see this lovely Le Mans circuit. Of course, iRacing doing a fantastic job, particularly the I believe they maybe not laser scan, but they have put in all the shops down the Mulsanne Straight, and they had iRacing developers just knocking on people's doors, basically, and taking photos of the shop. So really is mega accurate, this track, probably the most accurate of all sim racing, I dare to say. I'm not sure what the level is from other games, but I doubt it has been eclipsed, this model. And it does look absolutely superb, especially with some of the new lighting as well from iRacing, since the most recent build has really improved the look of the simulator.
Yeah, lighting's certainly come a long way in that, and as you say, the detail levels continuing to get ever increasingly good, especially when you look at what we're at tonight with Le Mans and some of the other venues on the series there. Detroit, another one that comes to mind, being fantastic with the waterfalls in the background there, and yeah, the level of detail's going fantastically well. We did see a change of position just on the run into Indy there, with Dave Clement actually getting back up in front of Happets. The guys now work their way down through the Porsche curves, and both those cars looking pretty well settled at the moment, and that's a good sign, with being 26 minutes on the clock and probably not too far off from that first round of stops.
Yeah, not too long to go for these guys. Yeah, of course, like I said earlier on, there's such kind of a wide margin of when you can come into the pits. Personally, if I was a driver and I realised these guys are probably quite a lot better than my 4K. In fact, it's not even 4K; it's about 3.6. Oh dear. And I mean, I just fuel it up straight away at the start, and then you've got shorter pit stops. You've got less fuel to put in for stops 2 and 3. But maybe they won't follow that ethos, and they'll go their own way. Andrew Malcolm, he's going his own way. He's into the pits, as are plenty of other drivers. Van der Berg, Ott, although that may have been a penalty. Bartholomew, Traynor, Madderford, Koch, Gray, although that was a penalty. Specchio, Morton, that was a penalty. Morton with a really slow pit stop, by the way, 1.5 minutes in the pit stop. So he's a long way cut adrift from the rest of the order. Might see another change of position here for 4th place. Herpats going back past again. So a little bit of teamwork here, just, one getting the slipstream down a straight and then kind of swapping over, trying to catch up to the gyros ahead.
Just jumping back a little bit further, Tim Phoeben just putting a move on Cody Bird there. They're still scrapping over the 7th and 8th positions respectively. Jackson Wall continuing to push ever further. You can just see him in the front of shot there. Currently finds himself up in the 6th position as well. A little further back as well, Wayne Taylor now in all sorts of menacing fashion on the back there of Dave Miller. The guys running down into that first chicane on the Mulsanne Straight, not able to get a move done, but these guys have been together now for quite some time on circuit. It doesn't look to be a lot separating them at all.
Yeah, it's mega competitive. Here we go, side by side again. Almost impossible to cover that inside line. You can see you can even go off the circuit if you really want to. And so pretty much a sitting duck, although the BMW struggling down the straight, had the momentum coming out of the slipstream, but if he was just lifting off maybe down that straight, but Taylor, once he pulled out, could not get ahead and now way off the circuit. This should be simple for Taylor and might even be a slowdown for the Porsche driver. Now the Ferrari is behind of Gallo. It might get the pair of them, gets the Porsche at least.
Yeah, that's a smart move there by Gallo, just to slink through as well, and that promotes him up a spot there. Dave Miller just missed the brake markers there and dropped a long way back, but he's not letting go on the run down into the final corner at the end of the Mulsanne there. Not quite able to get a move done, slots back in behind Gallo's Ferrari there. And these guys continuing off again now, running down towards Indianapolis.
It's taking a slightly unusual line. Surprisingly, he's not trying to get into the slipstream of Taylor, who we're riding on board with, and just wanting to give that pace up. Not quite sure. Really didn't seem to fight for it too much. And you can see almost an opportunity for Miller to go for a move on Taylor by the end of that straight. Such is the overspeed down that straight. So I was just going to say this lap 8 of the race, about to move on to 9.
Yeah, I was going to also comment. Interesting watching the way Miller's positioning that Porsche there. He took the car almost half a width over just to keep the Ferrari there, Pat Gallo, just behind him as he made the run through Arnage and Indy there. So that was pretty smart driving there while the guys are so close to put almost a bit of a block effectively on and retain that position. But he's starting to close back up on the back of Wayne Taylor here now in the BMW. The guys working their way through the middle portion of the Porsche curves. It's very easy to let the cars run quite a little bit wide through there, as you see Matt Morris jumping down the lane as well. But if you get that run a little bit out of sorts there, very easy to pick up a slowdown lap, and it looks like Dave Miller jumping in for a stop now too.
So more and more drivers heading in as the light starts to increase a little bit at Le Mans. The track is still at 18 degrees Celsius, which is as cool as it can be. I always bang on about this in commentaries, but I really want the track to be able to go down to like 5 degrees or something. I mean, Silverstone in December, it's not 18 degrees track temperature, to say the least. And it's certainly not 17 degrees air temperature, so it would be a nice addition from iRacing, if they're listening, to implement that. Although, of course, the new time model as well needs to be rolled out. Otherwise, safe to say there'd be quite a lot of grip in those conditions. Latter ahead, trying to stay close to Brett Hender. 8 paces from his starts is Hender. Was Hender always ahead of these guys? I guess this battle's been going on for a while and actually lost 1.5 seconds, did Brett, on that last lap. So coming under a lot of pressure now.
Yeah, well, we have seen Ken did have some issues earlier on in the race, which dropped him a long way down the order. So he's on a bit of a recovery drive at the moment. And we say recovery drive, he still finds himself sitting in the 12th position and about to put a move on Brett Hender down into the second set of chicanes there. And that's a nice pass down through the inside, very clean and methodical there. So done a good job there. But no, he's coming back strong now as a result of that first little issue there. And I think we'll continue to see him working his way further up towards the front.
Yeah, no damage on that car, thankfully. Otherwise, he would have certainly been into the pits by now to take a faster pair. Just glancing down the inside is the Ferrari of Hunter behind. Wood quite close as well. Also, Justin Wallace, who's been involved in a few collisions. He was in the 48s that last lap, which is pretty quick. Times have got a little bit stronger since the start of this event as the fuel goes down, increases your pace, particularly down these straights. It's just an automatic game pretty much. Whilst the tyres may degrade a little bit, that less weight in the car really does help your top speed and your acceleration and your braking and your cornering speeds. It really does help absolutely everything. Lads are almost coming into pressure into Indianapolis, but just about has a big enough gap, and through these corners should be able to start to pull away as long as he doesn't run too wide.
Yeah, he was lucky there not to get the car rotated as a result of running wide there. It's a very easy corner to overshoot, and just saw him about a couple of feet off the apex ultimately, and threw the car fairly wide through the exit there, but been able to recover. He's got himself a nice little run now, working the way up towards the entrance into the Porsche curves there. That BMW closing in a fair bit, but looks to be gaining just a bit more understeer, as you can see him working through. That's going to compromise the line, and actually going to back Richard Hunter up just a touch as well.
Yeah, despite Hunter looking a little bit faster through there, really couldn't make anything happen. Just across one line through there, not a significant enough braking zone to go for an overtake. None of these drivers coming into the pits, none of the drivers ahead of them coming into the pits. So real divide in terms of ideas out there, in terms of these strategies. Some of the guys came in a while back, but the majority staying out. There's lots more just to go ahead of Edwards, as Edwards got an issue out there. Dropping down the order, could be a connection issue. No, it is a proper issue. The driver who was running in second place, the closest rival to Dominic Ferraris, and you can see he was out by himself, but this is a complete self-spin on entry, and I don't know about you, but I've made a lot of mistakes just like that. The viewer seems to go really light there on that banked right-hander.
Yeah, the car does unsettle a little bit through there, and I've done many of that myself. So it's an easy loss to have there, but it's a little bit weird to see, especially this late into the stint. Obviously, we have lost a lot of fuel on these cars, but for an experienced driver like Craig Edwards, that's a little uncharacteristic for him there. But he should be able to recover. I don't think he's got any damage on. You see a little wiggle getting out through the Forza chicane there. Nothing too worrying, but that spin ultimately has dropped him a long way down the order now. Currently sitting in the 5th position, so a loss of 3 spots as a result of that, but not too far behind, just behind in back of frame there. You've got Jackson Wall, Tim Phoeben and Cody Bird starting to close back in as well.
Yeah, he wants to keep that gap above a second, otherwise they will get into his turn. Could be quite problematic for him, but that is a big setback for him. We'll keep an eye out on what this lap time is to get a good reference of how much time he lost, but you're absolutely right. He lost 5 places in, 3 places in that spin. And now 15 seconds, that means that Dominic Ferraris has over second place man Stephen Latz. He's up 6 places from his start. Ferraris was 1.8 seconds faster on that last lap. Because this is a long lap, but that is still an incredibly big margin for the 904 car.
Yeah, Ferris been able to really extend that lap, or the lead, sorry, pretty much every lap we've had out there so far, and we see just in frame down at the bottom of the screen there, since lap 4 to lap 9, that gap ever increasing to the tune of, like I say, 15 seconds ultimately now with the spin of Craig Edwards out of the way, but he's consistently been half to a second a lap almost quicker than everyone else out there. So we also had a slow moving Ferrari there. I think that was Dave Clement. Just dropping back in now behind Tim Phoeben. So that drops Cody Bird down to the 8th position at the moment. But these 5 cars now all line a tail running up into the back of the Porsche curbs there. We'll keep an eye on how Craig Edwards goes next time by. We're not too far away now from where he did have that spin out of Dunlop, so we'll keep an eye on that as a setup to just about complete this lap number 11.
Clements must have had quite a big issue there, because I think he was fighting with Herbpats before, wasn't he? In that quite long battle. But is a long way ejected. So we've got one car in, just the one. Jackson Walls. He's had, sorry, Craig Edwards, apologies. So that spin for him. And feeling as though that was the time to come into the pits. But yeah, odd for Clements to lose quite so much time. In fact, he lost 10 seconds on that last lap, did Clements. So he must have had a spin out there. And that has dropped him from maybe the podium places, considering that Edwards had made a mistake, all the way down to 6th place as we stand, and under pressure from Cody Bird as well. And we might find out what happened to Clements.
Yeah, it looks like he just lost it in the mid-corner there through Indy. Came in quite nicely, the car looking pretty good, but just losing the back end on entry, able to recover it. Didn't hit anything, which was a good sign there. And just at the end of that, you saw all the other cars working their way through, but he'll get back on board and we should see him going on. Brett Hender, meanwhile, has got Richard Hunter, Paul Wood and Justin Wallace all over the back of him, and he's looking forward at the moment to Kenneth Latta, who's still pushing on after that bit of issue, but great shots at the moment coming from Paul Wood on board his Ferrari.
Almost going to have 3 wide going into the chicane here. And going straight through the middle was the BMW. Nicely done. How is Wood going to navigate? This one just gets held up a little bit mid-corner. Can't quite nail that exit and to really halt his momentum. So that was Kenneth Latta then moving, or Brett Hender going through the middle there of Latta and Hunter. Gains 1 place.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Latta might have got a slowdown penalty there as a result of that, because he looked to be falling back to these guys at a rapid rate of knots there, but enough that he was able to clear it just before that chicane. Normally you've got a pretty long bit of track if you do run right through Tetraroos there, and you will pick that spot up, so lucky enough to get that covered. But look in the back on the little rear view camera on the Ferrari there, you got Justin Wallace starting to breathe on the back of Paul Woods. Cut to the rear shot there, and Wallace really starting to make the move now after that earlier issues that he had.
Yeah, 1/10 of a second behind, lifts out of it. Not far enough alongside to attempt an overtake. 48.18 on that last lap, which is faster than pretty much everyone up to about 5th place. So he's very quick out there is Justin Wallace. More side by side between Hender and Latta. I think Hender might move, Latta might move back past it on the inside, and does get ahead of Hender there. That's the battle for the final spot in the top 10. And now can Latta perhaps pull away?
Yeah, I think knowing what the speed of the Ferrari, especially with Ken Latta behind the wheel, he should be able to make a move and get back up. Just keeping an eye too, we saw Craig Edwards duck in the lane for his stop a lap or so ago there, 41-second stationary time. He drops back into the field in 21st position. Looks like he's got a little bit of traffic, or a bit of clear road, ahead of him, and he's trying to chase now down Lee Vandenberg ahead in the Mark 1 Esports Ferrari. So it'll be interesting to see now with Edwards having got the fuel, when the rest of these guys consider actually coming down the lane for their first stop tonight.
Yeah, it could be a bit of a catalyst for these guys if they want to cover him off. Long pit stop, yeah, 41 seconds. So, yeah, just loading it up with fuels. Cody Bird comes into the pits along with Adam Gardner.
Yeah, it's a reasonably long first stint for those guys, 12 laps into the books and coming in. So it's about on average for where we'd expect pit stops to probably start taking place. You can see a few more guys in the former Hender and Wallace also coming down the lane as well. But Jackson Wall has got a mirror full of Tim Phelan's BMW just behind him. The guys working through Pitcher is now getting a nice exit there. We might hang on board here with Justin Walls and get a listen to the sound of this Porsche.
Certainly not going to hear too much of the BMW behind. I doubt the BMW can hear any of the of its own sound, to be honest. Porsche absolutely roaring down this Mulsanne straight.
Yeah, I think the Porsche probably got one of the best sounds in the service at the moment. Sounds incredible, but it was really evident to see just how much of a helping hand that draft is. We see Tim Phoeben down the inside. He should get this position done and take 5th overall in through the braking zone. But Jackson not giving an inch, holds it down the inside. That's a huge move there. And Phoeben will have to drop back in. He might actually come under a bit of fire now from Dave Clemens behind.
Yeah, and this isn't really what these guys need as their rivals come into the pits, trying to go for the undercuts. These guys are meanwhile fighting and costing each other potentially a little bit of time. Once again, another attempt, and this time Walls has no response and almost coming in way too deep. In the background there was Clements, nearly tagging round the Porsche driver of Walls. Fortunately, just about managed to miss, but has lost quite a bit of time. Now, will Walls try to respond once again? I think they are going to go side by side again. Desperately
yeah,
want track position.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind betting that Wall's going to go around the outside here and set himself up for that inside run through Indy. He actually gets the move done long before. That's a lot of power coming out of that port.
That's and Hunter side by side. The 955 versus the 769. And it is Hunter who moves ahead, taking a lot of curb there. Should be okay from that slowdown. And now Paul Woods right on his tail as well, just rounding out the top 10. Expects these guys in within, maybe not even this lap. They could probably go a couple more laps, to be honest. Dominic Ferraris has stayed out to start a 13th lap of this race. So they certainly have that option, but like we saw before, pit stops becoming more and more common. Currently, the leader out to the drivers who have made a pit stop is Cody Bird. He's 2 seconds ahead of Andrew Malcolm. He came in to the pits very early. Craig Edwards pitted on lap 10, and he's about 8 seconds behind those guys, but with a very long pit stop. We're not going to get the entire picture until probably the second pit stops have been made. You can put in a lot of fuel at this first pit stop, make the second one shorter, or of course you can go the other way round. So tricky to really identify who's got the edge at any one moment. We certainly know that Dominic Ferraris has got the edge. We're going 17 seconds out in the lead. But behind that, it's his all to play for. And here is some images of the race leader all by himself.
Yeah, he's been doing it very, very comfortably out front. Dominic Ferraris is great showing that FT1 Motorsports mob. While we watch him continue a lap, we have got another bunch of drivers coming down the lane for their set of stops as well. So Dave Clement, Tim Phoeben, Richard Hunter, Jeremy Clark and Ken Latta all in the lane as well. So keep an eye on those boys. You can see them up on the timing chart just dropping in the lane there. But we might take a nice onboard lap here with Dominic Ferraris and watch his wheel work and see how he's getting around this 13-kilometre Le Mans circuit. That was a fantastic run there for Ferris, really making it seem quite effortless out front. Jumping back in, Mia Ott, sitting in the 10th spot. Got Matt Morris just ahead in the JPS Simshed's Porsche, right behind Brett Hender in the Team Hyperdrive BMW. So these guys pushing on pretty well. They've both come in for stops not that long ago. Actually, Brett with a little bit slower stop comparative to Matt Morris by about 10 seconds. So that could be a slightly different fuel window. But Mia Ott really getting on and pushing hard now on the back of Matt Morris down into the Mulsanne corner, just to finish off at the end of the long run.
Yeah, Ott's not going to be on a whole lot of fuel at the moment because he came in on lap 3 and didn't put a whole lot of fuel in. So I assume going to have to come into the pits quite imminently. So low on fuel, should be very quick at this part of the race, but of course it's going to be a long pit stop, and we'll have a lots of fuel to lug around this track over the next 20 minutes or so after he makes his pit stop. Flores and Latsmore into the pits. Herpat stays out, so should take the lead. He will take the lead. First was a long way ahead, but he wasn't that far ahead to have an entire pit stop. So Herpat's leads, the only driver to have stayed out. In fact, he is the only driver out of the whole field who has stayed out. So we were told earlier on that 14 laps was possible, and Nathan Herpatz has certainly made that possible. That, of course, has had quite a bit of a slipstream behind a couple of his rivals. So this will be quite interesting when it comes to Jackson Walls, I guess, coming out of the pits. Latsmore should still be a comfortable second place, should get ahead of all these other drivers. For us, in the pits for a while, by the way, 42 seconds so far. Now gets away, 44 seconds in pit lane. Latsmore and Walls also taking a while, so they're not going to be able to take track position away from him. Latsmore coming up to a similar mark right now, 43 seconds now for him. Here he comes. And Jackson Walls taking a while again. So these top guys wanting a long second stint seemingly, and then a short burst right at the end of the event. Cody Bird might be able to get ahead of Latsmore. Here goes down the inside into the chicane, and he does just nip down the inside. That might not mean too much come the checkered flag, because Latsmore's pit stop was 15 seconds longer, so we'll have to have a shorter second pit stop. But right now, Cody Bird running in the podium places. Jackson Walls with a very long pit stop. I mean, that's longer than almost everyone else. 56 seconds, and he's dropped all the way down into 10th place. So these pit stops, massive varying times, and it's mixed up this top 10 significantly.
Yeah, it's a couple of big changes there. We've got the little on-board shot. We'll see some of the cars jumping out of lane. It looks like Ken Latta on the run down in towards Dunlop. Pretty tricky overtaking move. We don't really see those cars coming in. It's great awareness from both drivers there. Cody Bird managing to get that positional change done and not having too much of an issue there. But that's something that you've got to be very careful around this circuit when you go and tip the cars in through one. Watching the exit through pit lane, very unsighted. It's easy to have a lot of incidents there.
Yeah, it's a tricky corner anyway, a little bit off camber is that one. I remember last year's Le Mans, we had a crash between a Rebellion and someone else, I believe, into the first corner of the race, and you crashed. It is a very tricky corner, so did well to kind of keep hold of the car. This is Jesse Butler, and he's just lining up behind a couple of other drivers, just trying to see where Butler is on the track. So apologies, 18th place behind Wayne Taylor and Paul Wood, another driver, very long pit stop, 53 seconds. So was fighting for a top 10 place, but now a little bit further down the order in 16th, still up 6 places from his start. Glancing down the inside, but Taylor will stay behind for now. They are 1.5 seconds behind Kenneth Latta, then it's Johannes Koch, and then Richard Hunters. Finally, Nathan Herpatz comes into the pits, really stretching out that fuel for a long amount of time. And then maybe it's a characteristic of the BMW, but managed to achieve something that no one else could. And if this is a mega short pit stop, he might actually keep the lead, but I think that would have to be about a 10-second pit stop and expect him to take something like 30 seconds worth of fuel.
Yeah, looking at the transit times for a lot of these cars, you're upwards of at least a minute. When a minute 20 by the time you take your tyres and everything. So for the guys that are only doing short fills of around 30 seconds, more than likely not taking the tyres at this point. So let's not forget that is a mandatory thing they will need to do. We'll keep an eye on that. And looking at where they are at the moment, Ferris should retake the lead quite comfortably. He's just about to cross the start-finish line now, and he will get back out in front. And looking at that, Nathan Happett's still sitting in the pits, 30 seconds elapsed so far. I wouldn't be surprised if he is taking tyres, but Cody Bird in the lane as well for his second stop tonight, so getting those moves done, and he should be good now to go to the remainder of the race.
Yeah, Bird came in on lap 3 of this event. Did he get a penalty earlier on? No, it was a choice that he took to come into the pit extremely early, then had that long second stint, but this is going to be a long pit stop, and going to have to make some moves late on in this race, and he's going to have some good laps after he comes out of the pits if he's going to challenge for a top 10 at the checkered flag. So just a little bit of a roundup after these pit stops. Dominic Ferris leads the way. Stephen Latsmore in second place, 18 seconds behind. Those two pretty much on the same strategy. So too Nathan Herpatz and Craig Edwards. That's the top 4. Maya Ott had a little bit of a shorter pit stop, runs in 5th place at the moment. He came in very early, so I expect him into the pits quite soon. It's Matt Morris in 6th place, Justin Wallace, Jeremy Clark, Jackson Walls, and Richard Hunter in 10th place. All those guys having different length pit stops, so could certainly mix up. And then behind there's Adam Gardner, Timothy Beeben, Johannes Koch, Cody Bird, and Kenneth Latter rounding out the top 15. But it will be fascinating to see what happens over the next 35 minutes or so.
Definitely, and I think with all the pit stops, or at least the first round of pit stops now completed, it's going to really be interesting to see how this all tightens up when the guys come in for their final stop. Looking at all the numbers that we're seeing at the moment, looks like a lot of guys seem to take tyres at the end of the first stop. There were a few examples that didn't, and we'll keep an eye on that to see whether they can promote themselves further up the order. But I think it's going to be a very interesting final stint here, as we still see Ken Latter on screen at the moment working hard on the back of Cody Bird's BMW there for Eclipse Sim Sport. It's good to see these guys having a strong fight. Ken coming back, obviously did have that little bit of issue early on and a slowdown that impacted him, but just sitting inside that top 15 at the moment, and that's a good result for him so far.
Moves ahead with ease, does Latter. Up into 14th place, 48.2 points. Fastest lap of the race, actually, that last time round. So maybe that little bit of clean air has helped him a bit. And now 6.5 seconds to catch up to Johannes Koch up the road. Had a 2-second longer pit stop, did Latter. And actually Koch, another Joe who came in on lap 3 of the race. So expect him to be into the pits quite soon as well. In terms of the class leaders, by the way, in terms of the top class, we've got Dominic Ferris, of course, leading the way. In the second class, Nathan Herpatz leads the way. And then in the third, Jeremy Clark in 8th place overall. And then out of the rookies, Jackson Walls is there. So quite a few different classes amongst in that top 10 places.
Yeah, I think it's great that we're seeing guys that may not be overly familiar with the car or as far up on the iRating ladder, still being able to mix it with the guys like Ferris and Ott, upwards of 4,000. Craig Edwards, nearly 6,000 iRating, and you've got guys 1,500 and around that still able to push up and really give the guys a good run for their money.
Certainly a bit of a specialist circuit. There's a lot of training goes in for a few of these drivers for the 24-hour event, upwards of maybe even a month of practice, and can really absolutely nail a setup and really learn this track like the back of your hand. And so sometimes we do see some slightly obscure results around here, maybe helping some of those drivers who are usually a little bit further down the order. Brett Hender currently fighting here.
They're taking a pretty solid line in through the run through the Porsche curves. They're not really giving Phil Morton a chance to get back into it. Phil, we still have some earlier issues on the race tonight, and he's working extremely hard to try and get back up towards the pointy end. These guys are scrapping over the 23rd, 24th positions respectively, and not a lot in it at the moment. Hender doing a very good job to hold that spot. See Butler and Gray coming in the lane as well, and Hender almost through the dummy there and forces Phil down into the pit stop.
Yeah, Morton with that pit stop, with that penalty earlier on, came in on lap 3 just to serve it. Had a mega long pit stop. Must have been some kind of issue for him because he lost 20 seconds, but that would have still been over a minute stationary. The longest elsewhere we've seen is about 55 seconds, so really lost a lot of time, but into the pits now. Really tricky day for him. I certainly know that Phil and the FT1 guys do a lot of practice for Le Mans, so probably a decent setup, and they would have felt confident about this round, but quite materialising in this round of the championship. Only the 2 retirements up to this point in the race has been extremely successful. Only 2 drivers, and out of the drivers still running, none of them are 1 lap down. Matt Farah, I believe, took the start. I'm not sure. And actually, Ryan Colstead is just a steward. So I think only 1 retirement then for the Le Mans race. That's quite impressive because, like I've said a few times, the walls are quite close around this track, and with the low downforce levels that these drivers run, it's quite common that drivers put it into the Armco, but not stay.
No, well, that's something we kind of mentioned we might see early on at the start of the broadcast here, that we potentially could see a few incidents like that. And we did see, I think, a couple early on in the opening few laps, but after that, everyone's really started to settle down. They're picking their positions for a pass and continuing on well. Lee Vandenberg probably having a night to forget for himself tonight, down in 23rd. He's got Willie Mitchell just ahead in that Pulse Racing Ferrari. And a little different to what we've seen from Vandenberg throughout the season. Normally we find him towards the top end of the field, and he is not going to be enjoying being down towards the mid to low 20s here at the moment outright. But looking at the way he's getting that car through the corners, he's certainly finding it working well, just not maybe got the straight line advantage to get up over Will Mitchell.
He's nearly 2 minutes off the lead currently. It's a vast distance. Great shame for him, but sure he'll be back for the next round. Just trying to see what's the next round of this championship is. I assume we're going to go back to maybe the 20-minute races for next week. Can't quite find out. I'll have a little bit of a rummage, but certainly I think
that's what I was actually looking into what we were up to next. Anyway, we're off to Nürburgring next week, so a 45-minute run there. So that'll actually be a really good change for these drivers coming from the long straights here, and probably vice versa, going from the 2020 sprint last week out at Phillip Island to the now 90 and off to the 45. They're going to be in for another World of Challenger.
Is that the Nordschleife or just the GP?
No, just the GP layout. I think the Nordschleife around here, you'd really want to be doing as an enduro. We've seen it in a couple of other championships. They normally run that as a last event. Certainly makes it a very entertaining one. We've got more drivers coming in for their final stops tonight. Wallace, Walls, Hunter, Gardner, Phoeben, and Koch coming down the lane there. So that's the guys dropping out at 8th position. But no, I think Nürburgring, especially with the GTE cars, going to present some really good challenges. A lot of strong braking for the guys down in through the stadium section there to get a few runs and passes. But a circuit that, again, similar to Le Mans, provides a lot of different lines for these drivers to take.
Yeah, Nürburgring not the favourite amongst some drivers. It's sometimes a little bit overused, but to be fair, I think in recent months, I've kind of noticed it being a little bit less on the schedule. I mean, it's not a bad circuit, it's just that it is used so much sometimes, but I think, yeah, will be quite welcome for the drivers to return back there and have some fantastic corners. Of course, Dunlop and a few of the SS sections, the Schumacher S, of course. So should be a lot of fun when we go there next week. And like I said, 45 minutes, a little bit less of an ordeal for these drivers. Katie Bird, 6 tenths of a second behind Kenneth Latzer. Expect these guys to go very for a while yet. Probably about maybe 5 more laps. Gonna be a late pit stop potentially. I've got just trying to work it out. Probably about 6 more laps to go in this race. So I think some of these guys are gonna have the option of pitting with 1 lap to go. Would you say that's a decent tactic to use, perhaps, Daniel, to pit with 1 lap to go and go down that avenue, or would you rather evenly spread these stints?
Look, I think given we're only taking 1 set of tyres in this, I'd probably err on the side of maybe splitting it up a little more, set the fuel windows a little more lower, try and retain the speed of the car throughout. But having said that, looking at the times the guys have done, it's pretty evident a lot of them have gone high early on. I think you can still make it work with a final lap stop. You do manage to get in the lane just before you cross the line, so we could see the likes of Ferraris or Lattimore even potentially come down the lane and do that, which would certainly be interesting to see.
Bird isn't going to quite have enough pace, I think, for a move into Indianapolis. Just saving a little bit of fuel for himself. Limit that final fuel load he has to take. Of course, Bird is this is actually for the 2nd place out of the 2nd division of drivers out here. Certainly Nathan Herpat seemingly going to take that one away, the 7.99 driver, but Latzer and Bird fighting over the last couple of podium places. Dave Clement's in 4th place in that category. He's a little bit further behind as Maya Otts finally comes into the pits. That was a 14-lap stint actually for Otts. Pitted on lap 3, got to lap 17, and had some pretty good lap times in there. So that pit stop, that's this strategy for Otts, which was quite obscure, might work out for him. And Matt Morris also coming into the pits from 5th place.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on that for Ott, because we know he's certainly quick in the car, and those issues earlier on really hindered his run here tonight, but setting himself up in a pretty good position to see him down in the lane. At the moment, getting his final stop completed. I am interested to see, though, with the changes, actually, one of the guys, we've spoken of him a little bit, Nathan Hapats, and I know for a lot of regulars who have tuned into a lot of the Australian stuff, certainly remember Nathan from the AEC and OEC days, and I don't see him out on track as much as we used to in the past, but having said that, a driver that still knows his way around a car pretty strongly. And I mean, if you're looking at the likes of Happerts and Edwards, both of these guys coming from the Fusion Sim Racing team, they are very strong competitors, especially in the endurance format.
Yeah, they've proven that today. Edwards half a second faster on that last lap. Of course, Edwards was running in 2nd place. It feels like a while ago, actually. It was about half an hour ago that Edwards was running quite a comfortable 2nd place. Maybe Lattimore was closing in on him a little bit. But still only 10 seconds off Stephen Lattimore, which is pretty much the time he lost with that spin. Maybe he lost a little bit more and then had to make his way up through the traffic. Also had to alter his strategy ever so slightly just to get the undercut on some of his rivals. So a day of what could have been perhaps for him, but was at the same time quite fortunate not to hit the wall with that spin of his. Matt Morris and Timothy Phoeben. Phoeben with a very long first stop and making up those places now Morris had a 14-second pit stop, so actually Morris has made his second pit stop already, apparently, although 14 seconds worth of fuel. Yeah, I guess he had a little bit of fuel in there anyway, but Morris isn't going to have a whole lot of fuel to finish this race.
No, certainly cutting it very fine there. He's going to want to be careful. That we see him running down the inside. Should...
Ooh.
Oh, that's our first major contact for the night there, Morris and Phoeben. Morris tried to shut the door on Phoeben on the run through one there, and we'll see what race control has to say as a result of that. Both drivers getting away, but that will, I think, will, if anything, hurt Phoeben maybe a little more than Morris there with the way the contact unfolded.
Now here comes Gallo, who's been a little bit in the shadows so far in this race, but quietly moves up into 12th place. Oh, and off the circuit there is Phoeben again. 3 wide. Phoeben loses a couple of places. And now that's going to be renewed then between Morris and Phoeben. Unless maybe Morris can get straight back past Gallo down this straight. Gallo with good straight line speed in that fray. Tends to be the best at top end. But doesn't have the ideal line. Kind of want to be on the inside unless he's got a lot of confidence here. It's Gallo. No, he backs out of it, probably the wise thing to do. And Phoeben, Morris does take back that place. Now Phoeben will be next up on the move. Down the inside into our nage. And Gallo leaves him plenty of room. So pretty much back to where we were, I believe.
Yeah, almost status quo unfolded again, and the guys will push on there. Smart moving between Gallo and Phoeben. 2 teammates not wanting to come together, and no doubt if those guys did, there'd certainly be some stern talking to afterwards. But smart move there to get back underway. It looks like Matt Morris been able to extend as a result of that. Now his advantage 1.4 seconds ahead of this little group, so it doesn't seem to be hurting at all after that contact and spin. But just behind these guys, we've got Aaron Specchio in the Porsche there, Brett Hender just behind, and Jackson Walls pushing all over the back of Hender as the guys now working their way up in towards the Ford chicane here. And I think looking at the stops for all these drivers, they've done them or now completing them, as we see who's that, Gallo and Hender, I think it was, Specchio, jumping in for the lane for their final stops as well. But just in the back of frame there, we saw Gardner and, Jackson and Ott getting into it as well, 2x2 down into turn 1.
Oh, Ott's very deep on the, Wall's very deep on the brakes. But gets it done into the chicane. Only 1.4 seconds behind Hender and Phoeben just up the road. So you're absolutely right. 2x2 pretty much going into the chicane at turn 2. Already making a little bit of a gap, but certainly a lot more racing at Antard there. A bit of a slowdown there for Walls. That'll be frustrating for him. Serves it immediately. Didn't want it to drag on at all. So he stops on the brakes. But that good move previously has been undone, and now he's got to catch back up to the drivers ahead again.
Yeah, he'll be bitterly disappointed with that. It's such an easy place to run the car wide through there and get a penalty on as a result. Andrew Malcolm and Paul Wood still scrapping down over 15th and 16th. It's been a solid battle between these two and a lot of respect shown. As you see, Malcolm getting the move done in that race on Oz BMW, promotes himself up into 16th now. Likewise, Paul Wood for the Aussie Sim Races there, continue to push on. It's been a strong drive for him. It looks like a solo outing for him and the team tonight. We normally see Gary Cousins in the team car out there with him, but putting on a pretty good show, it must be said.
This is where we saw issues on the last lap. This time Malcolm backing out of it a little bit earlier than what we saw between 2 other drivers earlier on. Ferraris, by the way, into the pits. So he might lose that lead again. So he's not going to pit on the last lap. Did have the idea of maybe Schumacher 98 Silverstone. These drivers could do. I assume they have to pit. they can't pit on the very last lap, but with 1 lap to go, I think will be the latest, and that's more. And Herpat's actually coming into the pits as well. That'd be disappointing for Herpat's, I imagine, because he was making some decent inroads on Latsmore and maybe just a couple of extra laps, overcuts on low fuel, and he may have been able to jump those other drivers, but hasn't quite worked out for him.
Yeah, it's interesting to see all those guys coming in, but I think one of the quiet drivers, we haven't really spoken of him, he drops into the lane as well, Jeremy Clark for Riot Sim Racing, had a pretty quiet and uneventful race so far, sitting in that 5th position, so he's one that's swept under the radar, but putting on a fantastic show.
Cody Bird at the top of the drivers who have made 2 stops previously to Ferraris, Latsmore and Herpat's coming into the pits. Herpat's with a longer pit stop, actually, 2 seconds longer than Latsmore, so the pressure that he was putting on just halted for a little bit. Here is Miller having quite an interesting battle with Vandenberg, who's making his way up after a bit of a disappointing evening. Taylor and Morton and Trainer all behind Morton, just gaining a place there. We have 2-1.
It looked like Vandenberg got himself a bit of a tardy exit on the outside there of Arnage. That will let Dave Miller through on the run up towards Porsche curves there. These 4 cars, though, absolutely nothing between them on the run through the Porsche curves there. All 4 makes up on screen at the moment. Great to see the lines that these different cars are taking and strengths and weaknesses throughout this 13-kilometre circuit.
Incident between 966 and 988 investigated after the race. That is Timothy Phoeben and someone else. I can't see who the 966 actually was, but I think we remember. Oh, Matt Morris, apologies. Those 2 who made contact at the second chicane earlier on with investigated after the race. Miller's going to have to go defensive into turn 2 if he's going to hang on to this position. Extremely close, a big queue of drivers forming behind him. Running a little bit wide. Vandenberg's wide there. I think that's because Morton was diving down his inside in the Ford GTE. Javi picked up a penalty earlier on, lost 20 seconds in his first pit stop and had to change his pit strategy a bit, but he's recovering well now, and that's going to be an easy move as his rival runs wide. Vandenberg loses a couple of places, and now Morton can move on to the Porsche ahead of David Miller. Wayne Taylor also gaining 9 places from his start and driving decently himself at the moment.
Yeah, Vandenberg seems to be struggling a little bit for turn-in with that Ferrari at the moment. He would have probably got an off-track and slow-down penalty for the cut through the S's there. Looks like he's able to recover that sitting on the back of Wayne Taylor, but the Ferrari really starting to struggle a little bit mid-corner and exit there, and that'll be something he's going to have to continue to look out for with just under 14 minutes to go left in this race, so about 5 more laps if the math isn't too far wrong in my head, and we should be able to see him get through pretty well unscathed there.
Only drivers yet to come into the pits for their second pit stop are Gardner, Phoeben. Surprised Phoeben has only pitted once. It's going to be quite a long way behind, I imagine, when all that is done, considering that he was in the top 10 earlier on, but Sokos has had a couple of collisions. There is Gardner, top of the drivers who is yet to pit so far. Pits on lap 11, and he put in lots of fuel, so he might be able to go for a couple more laps if he so wishes. Has a decent amount of space in front of him, so might make sense.
Yeah, it's probably not a bad idea. If he's able to continue on with the pace that he's got at the moment, should be able to see what he can do. He's got Jeremy Clark, we saw come in a lap ago in that Riot Racing Porsche there, just ahead of him, so not going to be too much of a concern. But Gardner's probably going to be considering what options he's got available with the pit stop and the limited times. You see him running very wide on the entry through the Porsche there. Back to this great battle though, Hender, Wall, Ott and Phoeben still going at it, working their way back through the Porsche curve there. These guys are not giving an inch at the moment.
No, it's mega close. Last lap, Ott was actually 1.5 seconds faster than Phoeben, who, yeah, like I said, probably needs to come into the pits at some point. Could go to the end of the race, but of course, mandatory 2 pit stops in this race, taking a lot of curve on the BMW, and even for the size that it is, it did seem a bit unsettled. And it opens the opportunity for the Ford to go for the move. Doesn't want the inside for turn 1. Maybe he will go for the inside for turn 1. That'll turn into the outside for the next. Putting a lot of trust on the driver on the inside here. Side by side, good action. Leaving plenty of room between the cars. And Phoeben holds on once again. Might have to pit again, but really wants to hang on to track position as long as he possibly can.
Yeah, likewise, just in the back of frame there, we saw Hender and Wall still pressuring as well. So these two are really starting to get up a good scrap. The 2 cars just in front, along with Wall and Hender as well. It looks like a slowdown penalty for Phoeben there. Gets out of the draft. That'll promote him to the back of this little group.
Big shame for Phoeben then. Who, like I said, was running in the top 10 earlier on. But, yeah, a little bit outside of it now. Side by side between Walls, trying to get past Hender. These two have been glued together for quite a few laps now. And Walls will have a decent opportunity down this next rail, because it's difficult to pull out from the drive ahead, because when, of course, Hender has a slipstream from Ott. Can be quite tricky, but here he goes, and he does get a little bit of a slipstream from Ott, actually does Walls, so not too much of a disadvantage. Has a nice bit of overspeed, as long as he's confident on the brakes, will be able to make that move. He moves up into 12th place, deep on the brakes, so loses the rear end a little bit, kind of gets the car stopped a little bit on the apex, and really blocks whichever way he can from the BMW. Now, coming back into this battle is Timothy Phoeben, who should have a much better launch than these two. If he really wants to, he could take this one 3 wide, but going for the safe option instead. Walls having to get defensive into Mulsanne corner, and from attack to defense, I think, for the car number 710, as Phoeben goes down his inside as well. It's constant chopping and changing right now.
Yeah, it's some smart running there. Phoeben with a great run, as you say, through that final chicane, getting a move done, but Hender not letting go, looking down the inside. The guys run up towards Indianapolis for another time in the books, 22 times so far through. Mia Ott getting on with Matt Morris there in the Porsche. Matt not giving a lot of issue there. Let's see positional change, but we'll probably get some advantage now from a draft on the run up towards the Porsche curves there, so we'll look to see how that goes. Ott a little wide there on entry, trying to really straighten out that corner, and gets a nice run as a result of that. Looks like we also got Phoeben, I think, managed to get another slowdown, and that little battle between Walls, Hender and Phoeben's really exploded, and those cars are all got a fair bit of gap between themselves now.
Yes, they all break away from one another, as you say. Still this one, line astern. Morton almost with a move there. Did run a Le Mans 24 hours with Morton. He very nearly crashed at that corner with about an hour to go. Skimmed the wall pretty much, but just about managed to miss it. Under pressure going into the Porsche cars. We've seen a few moves into the Porsche cars so far today, which few more than maybe we'd otherwise normally see, but they don't usually tend to be completely successful. Of course, really difficult to defend because you're taking such a wide line, as driver can on the inside can kind of take a much tighter line, but no attempt there. Watson staying ahead. Does seem to be maybe a little bit faster than Miller and Taylor, but just a small mistake and can cut you back about half a second.
You see Vandenberg going very wide there. May have picked up a slowdown. We'll keep an eye on that there. But Morton doing everything he needs to do to retain that up ahead of these guys. Dave Miller still holding off Wayne Taylor, and this fight seems to have gone on the entirety of the race so far. You see Taylor jumping the curves there. The BMW seems to ride the curb pretty well through that final portion there, but Miller able to get a nice run and should retain this for the next lap through as they work their way into turn 1. Doesn't look like it's going to be too much of a battle there, but fight still starting to creep up throughout the field there. Looks like Gardner and Clark starting to get together, Malcolm Woods and Hunter, a few guys throughout the field really starting to get into some solid battles now.
Should have 2 more laps to go after this one for the race leader. Still a couple of drivers yet to come into the pits, Gardner and Theben. And that is, in fact, all of them. Those are the 2 drivers, so they're really leaving it out as long as they possibly can. Odds on that last lap, by the way, 47.77. Extremely quick lap time. That was faster than third place man Nathan Herpatz. Of course, Ott came in on lap 3. Do you think, do you have an idea of what the best strategy was today, Daniel? Or what was it, that early pit stop? Was it maybe leaving it out a little bit longer? Or what would you say has proved to be the most strategically positive?
Look, I think each sort of stop's had its own merits. I think some of the guys maybe just outright speed has been the way to go. I think incident limitation has been the key thing realistically that's promoted a lot of these drivers up, like Steve Lattimore getting up there as a result of an incident we saw with Craig Edwards. So for the guys that have minimised that, probably been the key. But as far as pit stop strategy goes, I don't think we've really seen any major advantages play out as a result of it.
Wolves is going to have another go here on Theben. But Theben getting ahead there. Was that actually an overtake from Theben? He was behind earlier on in this lap. So, yeah, coming back once again. Runs a bit wide, though, onto that artificial grass. Ever so slippery there.
Yeah, we'll look to get the better run on the exit out there. Don't know whether he's going to have enough steam in the Porsche to get the move done before they run down in through the Porsche curves. We may see him drop back in line as he does. Takes that one line through the corners there, but really not wanting to let Theben get away from himself. You can see just how strong that Porsche is as they tip in through those curves there. Jeremy Clark's got a little bit of fight with Adam Gardner. We haven't really spoke a lot of Adam tonight. He did have a couple of issues earlier on, but still inside that top 10, which is another fantastic result for him, and ever increasing the points that he needs to help himself set up for a good run in the championship as well.
Yeah, starting the 1 pit stop though, so I might have to pit on this lap. I think next lap will be the last one of the race. Maybe I got the rules wrong. Maybe you don't have to pit twice, but I'm quite certain you do have to pit twice. And if so, he is apparently breaking that rule, but might have something up his sleeve. He has got a 13-second gap to and of course this will be a very short pit stop if he does take it. And he is extremely quick at the moment, is Gardner. 47.6 was 9/10 of a second faster than Jeremy Clark on that last lap. 2 drivers in the 2nd and 3rd divisions respectively as Gardner goes round the outside. Does he have confidence on the brakes? He's pulling that car ahead. The Porsche will keep his nose on the inside, and Gardner swoops round. And that is a pretty good line through that corner as well. So we'll have a decent launch coming out of that chicane, going into the 2nd Mulsanne chicane. Clark might try to retaliate, but actually falling further behind for half a second. So there's maybe an issue with that, or a slowdown, but losing considerable amounts of time down this straight whilst when you expect him to drag a little bit closer. Maybe some damage obtained on that Porsche car. 2.5 seconds now to Justin Wallace, and I mean, Gardner's got such a pace up there, 2 seconds faster than Wallace on that last lap. Might even catch him by the end of the race, providing he hasn't got to pit.
Yeah, I think Clark probably hindered a little bit there from taking that very shallow line through the first set of chicane, which ultimately did drop him back. Justin Wallace up on screen, we just mentioned him a couple of seconds up the road at the moment from Gardner. Been a pretty quiet race from Wallace, did have some incidents early on, but head down, bum up, is seeing him push back up through the field. Currently sitting 7th overall, which is a nice run for him in that race on Oscar. A little further back though, Brett Hender and Jackson Wall still going at it on the run down to Mulsanne Corner here, and looks like Hender getting another move done, but we'll see whether Jackson wants to throw it down the inside. Not quite close enough this time by, and I don't think he'll get that, but we'll focus on the exit as the guys set up and run down towards Indianapolis.
We also just had Latza getting past Malcolm just behind these guys. Walls, once again, not going to quite have enough pace down this straight to get past Hender, going defensive just to make sure Abouter is Brett. Oh, Walls with a big slide, and that's going to be in the wall, surely. It's a big off, and fortunately for him, locking the brakes and just about missing the wall as the two teammates of Malcolm and Latza go past. Big shame for Hunter there, falling down the order.
Yeah, he'll be bitterly disappointed with that. We've got Wayne Taylor, Phil Morton, and Dave Miller still scrapping it out. These guys fighting over 21st, 22nd, 23rd position respectively. Miller's still doing everything he needs to do right now in the Redback Racing Porsche there to retain that spot. But Taylor getting quite racy now, looking at alternate options. You see Morton just covering off in that forward at the back of shot there, and those guys are starting to extend a little bit of a gap now over, I think it's Cody Trainer just behind them as well. So these three guys still equally matched and have been basically for the last 5 laps now.
The clock has ticked down to 0. And so we are starting the final lap of the race for the race leader. By the way, Gardner didn't come into the pits. So, and Phoeben didn't come into the pits either. So maybe you don't have to do 2 stops. Or maybe our timing screens are a little bit incorrect. But those two have decided to stay out for this last lap.
Yeah, definitely going to have to review that. And I know Race Control will be looking to make sure that all drivers do complete the mandatory 2 stops, which they do need to have done and dusted on the race, especially for the 90-minute Enduros, but that'll be Sun Race Control. We'll no doubt be reviewing later on. Clark and Gardner, though, still going at it on the run down towards the first set of chicanes there. Gardner not able to quite get a move done. Clark very, very defensive in that Porsche. We saw him lose a position last time by, and that was a strong move to retain and get back ahead.
Yeah, it really seemed as though Gardner was going to be able to get past and pull away significantly and maybe catch up to Wallace by the end, but hasn't been the case. Maybe just sticking in the slipstream has been Clark, and gets back that move nice and quickly, just a lap later than he lost it. Dominic Ferrari still 25 seconds ahead, and you've got to say he's probably been cruising for a while as well. Been absolutely domination from him today.
Yeah, he really hasn't put a foot wrong the entirety of the race at all.
Went for the long first stint and then pretty much equal second and third stint, although I think he could have pretty much gone for anything. Fortunately for him as well, no traffic to deal with either. Absolutely no one around him. He's got about a fifth of a lap still to catch up to the stragglers at the back of the field. So it's been very simple for him all day long. And Dominic Ferris for FT1 Motorsports about to approach the final couple of chicanes. And this is going to be a comfortable enduro victory for him. He started from pole position and he has not looked back since. Dominic Ferris wins at Le Mans. Dominant performance from him. 25 seconds clear of the rest of the field. Really, really impressive. Stephen Latsmore is going to hold off Nathan Herpatz. Those two pretty much in tandem for the past half an hour, so that you can see Herpatz not too far behind, but he's not really ever got close enough to really launch an attack at the second place man. So Latsmore will finish in second place. Herpatz will finish in third and will finish top of the second division drivers as well. Gardner's got an issue right at the end. Well, we were talking about maybe he'll get a post-race penalty for not pitting. But I mean, I think that's a big enough penalty anyway. That car grabbing a lot, massive amounts of damage, and he will drop way back. I doubt he'll finish ahead of anyone who's still on the lead lap of this race. And still got battling between Malcolm amongst others. This for 13th place, promoted after a couple of collisions late on.
Yeah, Malcolm put in a very strong drive there, holding off his teammate Ken Latta in the race on Ferrari there, just behind them. Paul Wood as well. It's been a strong run for Paul, but Andrews hasn't really put a foot wrong. He's driven consistently well. The car's been fantastic for him. Just up front of this guy, we might quickly need to cross to that. Brett Hender and Matt Morris scrapping it out. As we see him on the back of shot there, looks like Hender able to get that done. Morris, I think, has not only hit something, but might potentially be out of fuel there, and that was a cheeky little shortcut at the end there, so we'll keep an eye on to see what happens there post-race as a result of that.
Walls holds off crisp at the end. Also was falling back quite a bit at the end there. His lap times dropped off, but did well to defend right at the end. Will Bartholomew be able to make a move? Here he goes down the inside into maybe the chicanes. Tries to just get his nose on the inside. He has got part of his car alongside. This could be a last lap move past Specchio. And that is very nicely done there from Stephen. Into the final chicane. Just has to make sure that he keeps it all under control. Nicely done. Last corner move there on Aaron Specchio. 3-6-1 game past 3-2-6. And we've only got Grant Manafort to come across the line. Like I said, extremely few retirees and only one driver, one lap down, which was Gardner, who must have towed back to the pits then on that last lap. Don't know if that counts as a second pit stop, but I doubt the stewards will look at it like that. And he'll be in 31st, but Manafort rounding out the top 30. In fact, he finishes ahead of Wayne Taylor, who must have cut that corner right at the end. He gets a post-race penalty and drops down to 30th place himself. So I think we can go through the final order then. Dominic Ferraris wins out and winner of his division as well. 26.5 seconds ahead of Stephen Latsmore. Nathan Herpatz about half a minute off the lead. Craig Edwards had a spin from second place. Wonder what could have been for him, because he maybe had a little bit of pace over the drivers who ended up in second and third. Cody Bird, a very strong fifth place for him. Then was Dave Clements, Justin Wallace, Jeremy Clark, top of his division. There was Maya Ott with a very early first pit stop, worked out brilliantly for him in the end. And Timothy Feeburn, who only pitted the once. We'll see what the stewards do about that after the race, rounding out the top 10. Then it was Brett Hender, Andrew Malcolm, Kenneth Latzer, and Richard Hunter, Paul Wood, Jackson Walls, top of the rookie drivers, by the way, was Jackson Walls. Congratulations to him. There's Jesse Butler, David Miller, Cody Trainer, Leigh Vanderberg, Pat Gallo, William Mitchell, Matt Morris, Stephen Bartholomew came past Aaron Specchio right at the end of that race, as we saw. Johannes Koch, Phil Morton getting involved in a crash right at the end. I imagine that was probably with Adam Gardner. Then it was Martin Crisp, Grant Madford, and Wayne Taylor. Last driver on the lead lap. One lap down was Adam Gardner, and then the retirees, and there were only two of them, Rob Gray and Taylor Oakes. So very good attrition rate out there today. Very impressive driving from the guys out there, and I think we should get an interview with a few of the drivers. And I think we've first got to have a chat with our race winner today, Dominic Ferraris. Congratulations, Dom. That was a dominant display. It looks quite serene for you out there.
Yeah, I seemed to find a really good rhythm with the car today. I was one of the only top runners in the Ferrari, and I think that proved to be a real advantage. But yeah, the setup really seemed to suit Le Mans, and I was just happy that I managed to get the pole, which means I could sort of control that start. And then, yeah, once I broke the toe in that first sector on lap 1, and I knew just keep my head down, no slowdowns, and it was pretty smooth sailing from there.
Yeah, definitely. Just take us through that first lap, because we were watching the timing screens, and immediately you got a fantastic launch. Was that how much were you thinking about breaking that toe? Because by the time you got onto the milestone, I think you were about 1.3 seconds ahead.
Yeah, obviously the main goal was to once I did get under that milestone straight to not have Craig in my toe zone, I guess, and I mainly sort of backed the field off a bit at the start, got that good launch, and I had one of my best first sectors at Le Mans ever, and it really helped. And then obviously I just ran to my pace, and I knew that the Ferrari was going to be quick. And yeah, I think the first stint was quite good, and the second stint I was making a few more mistakes, but it's probably because I was losing concentration due to the large gap I had.
Yeah, definitely. And in terms of the strategy, was it always was it quite simple for you to go for that strategy? It seemed like you did a long first stint, and then stints 2 and 3 were kind of evenly matched. Would you say that was definitely the best strategy out there?
Ideally, I guess if Craig and Steve had held up, I probably would have boxed a bit earlier so I could spread out that, because obviously we're required to take a set of tires in one of our pit stops, and ideally you want to spread that across, but I just wanted to minimize risk, so I boxed really late so I wasn't going to be caught up with any traffic, and due to the larger gap I had, I guess I had a bit more flexibility. But yeah, strategy was pretty good. I guess I would have done it a bit differently, but circumstances change everything.
Yeah, definitely. And next week we head back to Nürburgring. What are your opinions of that circuit?
On iRacing, I haven't done much running. The running I have done, I haven't enjoyed it, but I guess only one way to learn. Yeah, I've always struggled there, so it should be a tough one, but I'll definitely give it my best effort.
Well, I certainly wish you the best of luck, Dom. And before we let you go, is there anyone you'd like to thank?
Yeah, I'd like to thank all my teammates over at FT1 and FitSty, all of our partners, Demon Tweaks, Hybrid Racing Simulations, Fight CRC, GLA, and SimSpeed. And thank you guys for the broadcast today.
Thank you very much. And thanks for having a chat with us, Dominic, and hope to see you next week.
No worries.
So that was Dominic First, of course, driver for FT1 Motorsports. Daniel, do you fancy having a chat with Stephen Lattimore?
Yeah, got Steve Lattimore alongside me here. Welcome back up to the commentary box, mate. 2 weeks, 2-second positions. Coming very accustomed to this spot now. Hopefully, we're going to get you up on the top step in the not too distant future. But how was everything out there for you tonight, Steve?
Not too bad, thanks, fellas. Yeah, I have been here before. It was Catalunya. I did win that, but no. It started 8, so it wasn't really a good qualifying. Buggered up the pre-qual, but yeah, trying to stay with the pack, get for the traffic a little bit early, and hopefully try to catch up with Craig and Dom. Dom was gone by the time a couple of guys got slow downs, and I got past. Craig looked like he got a slow down or two, which allowed me to climb back up to him, but just couldn't get the draft to save some fuel. And then sadly, Craig had his little spin, which gave me second position, and then it was just trying to manage the gap from Nath.
Yeah, we saw the spin that Craig managed to have there. Unfortunate for him, but one door closes, another opens for yourself, and was able to promote yourself up there. But you seem to have a pretty solid run there with yourself and Nathan Happets. The gap not really getting too close, but you seem to be able to hold off. How did you find that little scrap, and was there anything you were looking for to maybe even help extend the time difference over yourself?
I wasn't trying to push and drive away. That gap was good. I was more trying to manage the fuel at that stage after the first round of pit stops, and look after the tyres. So I've got a little bit of fight if necessary at the end. I wasn't too sure what kind of fuel he took in his first stop. So yeah, I was just hoping that I could get out and save a little bit of fuel. Which in the last stint I was lifting a lot coming into corners, just rolling off the gas, trying to save that fuel, and just made it across the line.
Yeah, well, how short were you there at the end if you were needing to do that?
I probably would have died before in Indianapolis if I kept on pushing on the
Fair
last
enough.
lap.
Well, Yep. No, I get that. It's good to see. But obviously, next week we transition off from the long lap times here of the Le Mans circuit off to the Nürburgring. How do you find that course? And you're looking forward to a bit of a change, obviously, going from the long speed straights that we get here at Le Mans to something a little bit more technical in Nürburgring.
Well, I actually wish it was the longer version. This would be like a warm up for it if we jumped over to the big version of the Nürburgring. But no, it's a good track. It's got a combination of pretty much everything, plenty of room, places to make overtakes into turn one, down into before the Schumachers. I can't think of the hairpin, what it's called. But yeah, no, it's going to be a good track, good battle. Hopefully we see the same phases we saw tonight, so we can have a good entertaining race.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll let you go, Steve, and look forward to getting ready for next week. Before we do, let you go and enjoy the celebrations for second place tonight. Is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out and a thanks to?
Yeah, I'd like to thank Harvey Bay Auto Glass, Race on Oz, all the boys over at the forum, the guys on the iRacing team that show up each and every week. We had a few missing tonight. I do not know why. But yeah, all the sponsors over there and AMF for putting it on each and every week, and you guys over at Apex Racing TV.
Fantastic, Steve. We'll look forward to catching you out next week at the Nürburgring, mates, and we'll see you then.
Cheers, fellas.
So we should have one more interview then, and we will have a chat with Nathan Hupats, who finished in third place and top of his division. Congratulations, Nathan. You must be quite pleased with that. Third on the grid and very strong finish.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. Yeah, it was good. Haven't done an AMF round for probably all season, actually. This is the first one I hopped into and wasn't expecting too much. So, yeah, it was a great result.
It was a mega close battle between you and Stephen out there. It seemed like for the last maybe 45 minutes of the race, you guys were just separated by about 3 seconds, but you just could never kind of get that gap below about a second, it seemed.
No, he was pretty quick, and I'd catch him in some parts of the lap and pull away in the other. It's just the way the Ford and the BMW differ in their pace around there, and yeah, I was pushing hard, so I wasn't leaving anything on the table. But he did a good job. He didn't make any mistakes, and yeah, it was a great battle to the end.
Absolutely. Would you say that you prefer these longer races compared to the 20 minutes? Do you think they kind of suit your driving style?
Yeah, good question. I'd say probably, yeah. The Fusion Sim Racing team, we tend to focus more on endurance events. So we won our class in the OEC 8-hour race last week, and this was the same track and the same car. So I thought, give that a go, and yeah, it was great. Enjoy the races; they're good strategy.
Yeah, definitely. And what do you think you're going to be able to turn up for many more of these events towards the end of the season?
Hope so. Depends on kids and whether I get a leave pass from the missus. But yeah, we've got no other endurance commitment for the next month or two. So yeah, I'll definitely try and get along. It's great. Yeah,
Awesome.
really strong fields, as you know, and great competition, and it's a real challenge. So yeah, really enjoyable, and I'll try and do it.
Definitely. Well, we certainly hope to see you there. Before we let you go, is there anyone you'd like to thank?
Yeah, look, just a big shout out to guys at Fusion Sim Racing and our sponsors, Eclipse Signage, Dripping Paint Graphics, Daryl Carter Plastering. Also, thanks to you guys for doing the broadcast. It's really good to be able to get these events broadcast, and you guys do a sensational job. So, yeah, thanks to you.
Well, thank you very much, Nathan. And yeah, hopefully we'll see you more often on Apex Racing TV.
Right, thanks, guys.
So that was Nathan Hupats, of course, finishing in third position today. I think that pretty much rounds off our interviews. And Daniel had a really good race today. I mean, there was battling constantly up and down the field, and some of those battles seem to just go on for the entire race up there.
Yeah, look, all the guys put on some fantastic racing, and as you say, the battles were thick and fierce throughout the entire of that race. There's a lot of guys. Didn't really matter where they came in for pit stops and the likes. Always seems to find themselves back together again. And just looking at the way they managed the fight and set up the passes and that, it really it led to a lot of re-racing and alternate strategy and pass opportunities coming back in afterwards. So I think all in all, the driving standards tonight, absolutely fantastic. No doubt Race Control probably got a couple of little things they do need to have a look back over, but no doubt we'll see about that later on in the week. But all in all, I think it was another fantastic event for the guys at AMF.
Yeah, definitely. We're looking forward to more of these events coming up in the next few weeks. Of course, as we've said previously, Nürburgring coming up next week, and that will be a 45-minute race. Hopefully, you'll join us back for that. And of course, if you haven't already, please leave a like on this video, and of course, subscribe to the Apex Racing TV YouTube channel, and click the bell to get notifications, and also look at our other social media profiles on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and all sorts. Of course, later on, we've actually got a special charity race, a GTE event at Road America. So that will be on at about 19 GMT. So hopefully you'll check out that one. And then, of course, amongst the rest of the week, we'll have plenty of events on, especially official series, including the Tuesday evening IMSA broadcast. We'll be broadcasting the top split for that one. So hopefully you'll either take part in that or watch along with us. And of course, also give a subscribe to the iRacing Esports as well, iRacing Esports Network as well, because we broadcast on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday nights. That's European nights on there. But certainly, thank you for tuning in. Hopefully you've enjoyed this broadcast, and hopefully you'll tune in for next week as well. But for now, from me, from Daniel, and from Scott, we'll say goodbye, and we'll see you next time.